In these videos, I've been extremely critical of democracy. The writings I have included in the Perennialist Pre-Theory series have similarly had very little good to say about democracy. To summarize, I have argued that democracy is both illegitimate and immoral. These are foundational objections to democracy. That is to say, my critiques of democracy attack democracy in its essence. It is what makes democracy what it is that makes it objectionable. I have not concerned myself with what could be called instrumental critiques of democracy. These are critical perspectives on democracy that deem it an ill for its consequences. There are many such critiques that are entirely worthwhile. Most anciently, Plato provides just such a critique of democracy. More recently, Jason Brennan, Brian Kaplan, Bai Tong Dong, and Daniel A. Bell have all given instrumentalist critiques of democracy that deserve to be read. Whenever a line of criticism is raised against democracy, be it foundational or instrumental, one's interlocutor is, should all else fail, likely to retreat to the final redoubt of what I call the Churchill defense. The Churchill defense is likely familiar to you, my viewer. It is usually intended as a conversation stopper. In its popularized form, it goes something like this. That may well all be true. Democracy is, as Churchill said, the worst of all systems, except for all the alternatives. In this short video, I'd like to provide some considerations on the Churchill defense. To begin, let us look at Churchill's actual words. It has been said that democracy is the worst form of government except all those other forms that have been tried from time to time. But there is the broad feeling in our country that the people should rule and that public opinion expressed by all constitutional means should shape, guide, and control the actions of ministers who are their servants and not their masters. What does Sir Churchill mean here by worst? If he means least legitimate, one must flatly reject his claim. Of all the forms of government that have been tried from time to time, democracy is the least legitimate. By denying the role of heaven in conferring legitimacy, and instead assigning that function to the people, democracy inverts the structures of political legitimacy, so deifying the people and thus committing the sin of shirk. But it seems unlikely that Churchill has legitimacy in mind when he says worst. One gets the sense that what he, and those who invoke him, intend to indicate by this word are the results of the form of government. In other words, he is making an instrumental argument for democracy. If you are a liberal, you will find this argument convincing, provided democracy is assumed to connote liberal democracy, as, indeed, I believe Churchill intended it to. This argument is sound, but it amounts to less than it may appear to on first hearing. Churchill's argument is not much more than this. A liberal form of government produces the most liberal results. Why should we be impressed by this? I am not a liberal. I prefer liberal outcomes to those prioritized by communists and fascists, but they are far from my ideal outcomes. So, the Churchill defense is not quite the conversation ender it is thought to be. Furthermore, being an instrumental argument, it does not posit that democracy is good in and of itself, but rather for its results. This is how it is usually employed. The evils of democracy are acknowledged, but they are implied to be lesser than those of other systems of government. What is most likely lost on the person citing the Churchill defense is that by doing so, she or he is conceding that democracy is not a good in itself. If one stands by the Churchill defense, then one cannot argue that something is good simply because it is democratic. If, in a particular context, an undemocratic measure could be shown to bring about better results, then the person in question must part ways with democracy. One wonders how many of those who make the Churchill defense are cognizant of this. What is more curious, however, is that in the full context of the original statement, Churchill immediately contradicts his own instrumentalism. He states that democracy produces the worst results, but It is the only form deemed legitimate. Whatever the faults of the people, there is broad feeling that the people should rule. Aside from this contradiction, there is a more egregious problem with this second point of Churchill's. His reasoning is circular. Public opinion should shape, guide, and control the government because there is broad feeling that it should. This amounts to saying that the people should rule because the people feel that they should. This is obviously a non-argument. A final point remains to be made. Churchill was opposed to female suffrage. It is also dubious if he would have thought that non-whites should have the right to vote, seeing as he was opposed to the colonies ruling themselves. Churchill might have had something else in mind when he said democracy than does the person quoting him. For Churchill, the best liberal democracy is that in which less than half the adult population is indeed included in the people. Those invoking his legacy may well not even consider Churchill's preferred form of democracy a democracy at all. If you value my work, I'd be most grateful if you would like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share this video with anyone you think might be interested. If you would like to support me in working on this project, I'd be deeply thankful if you would consider becoming a regular supporter through Patreon or making a one-time donation through Ko-fi, links in the description. If you do subscribe, please remember to hit that little bell icon because otherwise YouTube won't inform you when I upload new videos. If you'd prefer to read my essays over the video format, they are all available in written form on Substack. Link also in the description.